And why should you do this? One of the best things that you can do to improve your open rates is to have relevant messaging. And one of the best ways of having relevant messaging is to target that individually to either individuals or to specific groups. And if you know what people are engaged with, then at least in theory, you can target your next campaign more effectively to those people. So this data, which is in the engagement scoring, you can then feed back into your CRM system or back into your sign up to system, and then use that to further segment your data and send specific targeted campaigns. I'll show you some examples in a moment. So what does it look like? I mentioned the engagement profiling. This is the historical profile of a typically engaged customer. So remember, this is for an individual customer. It could be also for a group. You can also see it for a group, or you can do an engagement scoring across your whole database. And this is for a whole database. What you can see here, I'll just come out here. That doesn't work. On the vertical axis, this is the subscriber size, the size of your database, and on the horizontal axis, this is time. So starting from here to the present day. The 1 stars here, these are the people who are typically disengaged with your campaign and progressively going up. So these are the people in your database as of now which are highly engaged. So the characteristics of a highly engaged database are that, for one thing, the database is growing. For the second thing, the 5 stars are proportionally large compared to some of the other groups. You always get a big disengage for the reason that I mentioned, that 75% of people are never going to open your emails anyway. And you can also see that the slope of the growth of the database is regular and it's relatively smooth. This is typical of a company which is emailing on a regular basis, so there are no sharp jumps in that. Your database tends to grow evenly, and proportionally your 5-star engagers grow proportionally compared to the other ones. This is more of a profile of a typically disengaged database. It's not actually too bad. I'll show you some worse examples of this. But here you can see that the 1 stars are proportionally large compared to the other ones. The database is still growing, of course, so if all you look at is how big your database is, hey, I'm doing okay here. But when you actually look at the engagement profile, you can say, yes, you're growing your database, but you're growing your database with a whole load of people that really don't care about what it is that you're sending to them. You can also see in here that that although the database is growing, it's not growing smoothly. So this is typical of a company which is emailing not so regularly, and this is what produces the rather large sort of spikes in that. Not necessarily a bad thing, but also not necessarily a good thing either. These are some other examples. The other way of presenting this, this is actually, you can see the scale of the database growing. If you normalize that, so here we're just showing the percentage that are 1 star, 2 star and 5 star. So you can't actually see the growth in there, but you can see that it's better to see the growth of the individual bands in this. So here are 2 examples, one of which is quite bad, one of which is very bad. The one on your right is, you can see that there are a high proportion, although it's actually going down, there are a high proportion of 1 star disengaged people compared to in fact there aren't any engaged people in this. You can see that these people email so irregularly that the data is almost invalid, and that's why there are the big spikes. The one on the left is not quite so bad, but you can see that again it's a fairly sort of spiky relationship. This is getting slightly better, the publisher and the e-commerce. The e-commerce one, you can actually see the effects that individual campaigns has on this. So when you send a campaign, people tend to be engaged for a short period of time, and then they progressively remember that if between campaigns, if there's nothing in between, then your engagement will decay naturally over that time. So the more regularly you email, then the more that effect will be diminished. So you can see some spikes in there, and again, they're both good in the sense that the disengaged people are going down, but they're not going down in any sort of meaningful way. Here are some much better examples. So you can see on your left-hand side, the events promotion company, there is a progressive decrease of the people who are disengaged. There is a very regular email pattern, so it's a relatively smooth, there's not so many spikes in it. and the upper engaged levels, especially here on the right-hand side, the financial services, are progressively getting larger compared to the other groups. So this would be typical of a highly engaged database. Financial services tend to email much more regularly, could even be every day, even every hour, and that's why you tend to get a much sort of smoother curve. And also their opening rates tend to be better than other sectors. Okay, I'll go back behind here. So there's a couple of examples of what an engaged and a disengaged database might look like. I mentioned already that you can do this either at an overall subscriber, an overall database level. You can segment individual groups and look at the engagement profile of that individual group, or you can actually look at the history of individual subscribers within your database. What you actually do with that's the next stage. This gives you two things. It gives you firstly how a measure of how engaged your customers are now, but also a history played backwards or projected forwards, if you want to, about what you can do about that with that information. And what you can do with that is, remember a while ago I mentioned that you can define audiences, and engagement is one of the audiences that you can define. So you can take each of those 5-star ratings and say, I'm going to create a 5-star audience here, a 4-star audience here, and then you can use that information to say, this particular campaign is only going to go to my 5 stars or my 1 stars or a mixture of those things. And you'll see examples in a moment of different campaigns targeted at different groups and the effect that that can have. And of course, you can integrate that into your sales form. So now that you've got that information, you've got a quantitative measure of how engaged people are. What do you do with that information? One thing is, if you consider your 5-star engagers, it's very common to reward type campaigns. So these are the people you can say, you're the people that love our brand, we love you for that, here are some VIP tickets, or here is a birthday voucher, or whatever it is, and actually indicate to them that the relationship that you have with them you feel is a strong one. So it's like a loyalty reward type of scheme. On the other end of scale, or rather, what would you do to your 2, 3s, and 4s subscribers? These are the people that sort of flit in and out of the relationship with you. So these are the people that are typically you would entice with special offers, comeback type things, that sort of thing. And at the other end of the scale, you can actually target your 1-star subscribers to say, essentially, what's gone wrong here? Are you no longer associated with my brand? Have you moved to a competitor? Is what I'm sending you not relevant anymore? Have you died? Whatever it is. And I'll show you some examples. So this is an example of a target campaign that goes to the 1-star subscribers. It's a business-to-business services company, which they offer management, seminar, public speaking, and that sort of thing. They have about 900 subscribers, so it's not a huge database, and they send around about 4,500 emails a month. So it's a relatively small marketing operation. This is what their engagement history looks like. So you can see that over time, their subscriber database hasn't grown. In fact, it's decreased slightly. But also over time, as you move from left to right, the number of 1-stars is progressively increasing. So people are becoming progressively disengaged with what they have to offer. So this company said, what we will do, we will specifically target those 1-star people with a re-engagement campaign. We've got some new information, it's about time we got back in contact, that sort of thing. This is the email, and it's actually a good example. You'll hear a lot here about content and design. Sometimes a plain email is all you need. If there is a specific message, one call to action, then you don't need fancy graphics and things, especially if you've already got a relationship with people. So this email just says, we'd like to get back into contact, we've got some new products, how about it? This is not the greatest example you will ever see, because by definition here, although this was sent to around about 2,500 recipients who had the 1 to 3-star rating, by definition, these are the people who are not engaged with this company anyway. So typically, you're going to get a very low engagement rate, low open rate anyway. But that's just part of doing this. From this campaign, they got a 3% renewals rate, which is about average click-through for a moderately engaged audience anyway. But what it did do was clean out the data which we now know to be disengaged. So going forwards from that, I can show you this is the engagement profile before and afterwards. So the one which is on the right-hand side is afterwards. So you can see, although the database size is now smaller because a lot of people have unsubscribed or you've actually disengaged them from your campaigns, the proportion of highly engaged people is now higher compared to the overall size of the database. So although it's not the greatest in terms of opens and click-throughs, it still served the purpose of re-engaging with people who otherwise would have probably be lost. At the other end of the scale, there is a company called the Applause Store, who you may have heard of. They're a ticketing site for things like the X Factor and The Voice and Take Me Out and some of the programs on TV. They are a very frequent emailer, so they send. They've got a database of around about 18,000, and they send, I think it's about 4 emails per month. Database of about 1.4 million. They did the opposite. Oh, this is their engagement campaign, their engagement history. So you can say that very strong build in the overall size of their database, and also proportionally, although not dramatically, an increase in the number of 5-star engagers within their database. They did the opposite. They sent a campaign. They had a show coming up called Sweat the Small Stuff, and they wanted to offer that VIP tickets to their sort of as a reward to their VIP club. So this was the email that they sent. We quite like this one. It says, "Hi, the clever people at Sign Up To have identified you as being a highly engaged customer. We'd like to offer you some sort of VIP seating for this show." This was sent only to their 5-star engaged community. Their average open rate is about 18%. This was sent to 5-star sends, about 300,000 of them, so about 20% of their overall database. And as a valued member, their open rate for this particular email was 61% compared to 18% in normal. I don't have the figures for what the sign up from that was, but you can see the dramatic improvement from the average in doing that. Okay, so we've now got a quantifiable measure of engagement. We've got what you would do with that. Firstly, what that engagement profile looks like, what you would do with that information, and finally the sort of, I guess what may be an obvious question is why should the so what? Why should you care about any of this? So I think as marketers, of course we can look at open rates and click-through rates and engagement in that sense, and that's valid, but we're all probably business owners, or we have a vested interest in business ownership at some point, so we should look really beyond the marketing benefits. There was a very good survey of top 500 companies about what were their main business challenges. And engagement, or having a highly engaged customer audience, actually directly impacts 5 of those top 10 business challenges. So things like increasing profit, increasing revenue, growing customer base, enhancing the customer experience, etc. These are all the things which are on the board of the CEO's agenda to improve. And you can actually make a relatively good case for having an engaged customer base also directly affecting some of the other of the top 10 business challenges. So overall, it's good for business. It's also good news for your future business because, according to Sage, successful companies don't just look at the initial sale, they actually look at the lifetime sale of that customer. And resale is a really big opportunity for most of you, I'm imagining. So a lifelong customer is one who tends to be engaged rather than disengaged, I think fairly obviously. Loyalty for many, many sectors is a really big buying criteria. So loyal customers, typically, it varies across sector, but loyal customers typically account for about 80% of a customer's profit, and engaged loyalty means resale and upsale potential. It's also good news for your individual brands because engaged customers, not only do they buy from you, they recommend to your friends. So if anybody of you are familiar with NPS, the Net Promoter Score, look for who are your brand advocates, who are your passives, and who are your detractors. And by definition, your brand advocates are the people who are out there doing your marketing for you. So they're the people that are recommending you on TripAdvisor or Facebook or wherever it is. So the networks of your brand advocates vastly increase your marketing potential. There's a statistic from New York Times actually that 83% of satisfied customers are willing to refer, and referral is a really strong business driver. And it's also good news for your sales team or yourself if you're involved in sales, in that we all know that acquiring new customers is difficult, but retaining customers is relatively easy compared to those, providing you have a good product and a good service, of course. So it makes good sales sense. Also, referred customers have a much higher percentage closure. So if you send to your sales team, this person has come by the referral of our existing customer, they're going to have a much higher proportion of closure rate on those against somebody who is coming into you cold. Repeat customers also tend to come back again, and each time they come back, they tend to come back and buy more. So another good reason for your salespeople to be excited. So it's good news for your brand, it's good news for your sales team, it's good news for your business, so it's generally good news. It's good news for your marketing as well, of course, to have an engaged customer base. So that's the end of the presentation. Just a quick word about who we are. We're actually along the corridor here on stand A60. Sign up to, we're a email service provider and software developer and service provider. We work in all sectors, as you've probably seen from the engagement characteristics. And we specifically, I think if you want to send the same email to everybody, then there are lots of people that do that, but we specifically work on targeted, relevant campaigns. If you'd like some more information, either come along to our stand, or I have some guides on precision marketing. We have free seminars, and if you'd like a copy of the slides, either mail me, or I can just bring your business card and I will send you a copy of these slides for you. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them. Thank you.